What if I told you America's most sensitive military secrets might have been leaked, not by a spy, not by a hacker, but by our own leaders, from their cell phones? The NSA and the Department of Defense have been sounding alarms for years about the risks of encrypted apps like Signal. Yet during high-stakes missions overseas, top officials still use them, and in one chat, a message confirmed a military operation, while one participant was in Russia. If that doesn't send chills down your spine, what comes next will? The warnings weren't vague. The NSA issued detailed advisories, explaining exactly why encrypted apps like Signal aren't invincible. They've flagged vulnerabilities that could be exploited by foreign intelligence agencies.
Chair, I recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Keating.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to take my time to react to the testimony already given. The three pillars that each of the witnesses and the Secretary highlighted. Pillar number one, restore the warrior ethos. You know, I've had the privilege in this committee to see firsthand a special window of our troops, their courage, their tenacity, their commitment. You don't have to restore the warrior ethos, sir. It's already there. We've never lost it. Pillar two, I just want to highlight something that is a concern. Pillar two is the border security issue. And among that, I'm really worried about the agreement with El Salvador that exists. I think it's very cloudy. We don't know exactly what they're getting in return for their commitment to house the hellhole prisons, in the hellhole prisons they have, people that are shipped there, transported there illegally. But there's problems with that. It violates the Constitution, number one. It violates the First Step Act that President Trump paraded around and took so much credit for in his first term, he and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. It violates the Leahy Law, which prohibits federal money to be used for prisons of that type. It violates the Foreign Assistance and Transparency and Accountability Act that our Secretary of State was a proud sponsor of, that demands taxpayer accountability for monies, because all we know is the White House has said they've given El Salvador, given their strongman, Bukele, $6 million. But then they're holding another $15 million in international narcotics and control and law enforcement to the side for prospective use here. And of concern, too, is we're now transferring helicopters, military assets, to Bukele. We're giving him helicopters. And I'm concerned about that. Supposedly it's there for humanitarian reasons. It's being taken away from the Drug Control Task Force dealing with the fentanyl issue. And now it's there for humanitarian reasons in Bukele's control. And I'm just worried about going down the road here. I think there should be strict oversight of what they're getting from the U.S. If that's not there and there's dark money and dark assets being passed, we could have the makings of another Iran-Contra. Thirdly, the third pillar, deterrence. And I look to what every expert militarily, from a security standpoint, said is the greatest deterrent that we have with China and Russia, and our greatest weakness if we lose it. And that's the war in Ukraine. If we fail to support Ukraine and Ukraine loses, that's a green light for China. That's just not my opinion. That's virtually every security expert. We have something China and Russia don't have. We have a coalition of 50 countries, 50, dealing together. They don't have anything near that. Yet, you've attacked that alliance. You said they're pathetic. You called them freeloaders. They have paid, and we want more money, and they're giving more money for their own defense, but they've given $199 billion towards Ukraine, more than the U.S., by the way. And they're not freeloaders when they came to our assistance at 9/11. They suffered thousands of casualties, several hundred deaths. They're young men and women sacrificed to defend Article 5, the only time it was exercised for the United States. They're not freeloaders. They're dealing with that. And yet today, you attacked one of them saying that now you've confirmed that the U.S. has plans in place to invade the territory of a founding member of NATO, Denmark. That's not being strong. That's not being strong. It's also chaotic. This is the chaos cabinet when it comes to Ukraine. Secretary of the Treasury, Putin is a war criminal. Trump's chief negotiator, Putin is trustworthy, he's not a bad guy. Secretary of State, Putin was a war criminal, I guess, but now he's not, he doesn't know. Trump says Ukraine was the aggressor. The Secretary of State says Russia was the aggressor. You, sir, the Secretary of Defense, said Russia was the aggressor. The chair of Joint Chiefs said yesterday that Putin would even stop at Ukraine. The Trump ambassador resigned because of this policy, and I think Vice President Vance said it best. He said he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine one way or the other. That is not strength. That is not using our coalition. That is not deterrence. You're wrong on all your pillars. I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
The DoD echoed those warnings, highlighting the same risks. This wasn't new, it wasn't theoretical, and it wasn't a one-time caution. It's been hammered home for years. Yet somehow, the message never made it to the top where it mattered most. Or worse, it was ignored. And that's where the trouble starts. Because this isn't just a tech story. This is about national security, about the deliberate choice to sidestep protocol and gamble with information that could put American lives in danger. These weren't casual weekend texts, they were communications during active sensitive missions, and yes, one of those messages spelled it out clearly. Just confirmed with CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. Now imagine reading that while sitting in a foreign country with the ability, and the motivation, to intercept it. That's exactly what may have happened. According to congressional testimony, one participant in that Signal group chat was in Russia at the time. Another was traveling across the Asia-Pacific region, and they weren't using secure military-grade communications equipment. They were chatting on an app the DoD itself has called risky. If that doesn't set off alarm bells, you're not listening. This isn't paranoia, it's reality. When senior government officials use unsecured channels overseas, they might as well hand a gift-wrap package to foreign intelligence services, because those adversaries aren't guessing. They are actively hunting for cracks in America's digital armor, and when they find one, they don't just peek inside, they exploit it. The most shocking part, these risks have been openly acknowledged at the highest levels. Yet the leadership culture has become one where we've always done it this way is the excuse for inaction. That's not just careless, it's negligent. And negligence at this level can have devastating consequences. One of those consequences came into sharp focus in this same hearing. The Houthis, once considered a ragtag militant group, they now possess advanced anti-aircraft systems capable of targeting U.S. aircraft. Systems like the SA-3 and SA-6, both confirmed in use. They've already taken down American MQ-9 Reaper drones. This isn't just a step up in capability, it's a leap, the kind of leap that doesn't happen without a serious intelligence failure somewhere along the line. The connection is chilling. When sensitive operational details leak, especially in real time, adversaries gain not just information, but an opportunity. They can reposition assets, target forces, or even anticipate attacks. And when groups like the Houthis suddenly have the ability to challenge U.S. air superiority, it's fair to ask, who let this happen? You might expect that question to be met with urgency, transparency, and accountability. Instead, the hearing was filled with deflection, evasive answers, leaders claiming not to remember where they were or what device they were using. This isn't how you address a breach of national security. This is how you dodge responsibility. And here's the thing about accountability, without it, nothing changes. Soldiers on the ground, the ones who actually face the consequences, see the pattern clearly. Failed strategies, lapses in security, supply chain issues, and leaders back home who hide behind bureaucracy instead of owning their mistakes. That erodes trust, and when trust is gone, morale follows. Ask any service member and they'll tell you morale isn't just about pay or benefits, it's about knowing your leaders have your back. Right now, too many in uniform feel like that's not the case. And when frustration builds in the ranks, the entire defense structure is at risk. A military can recover from a tactical setback, but when its people lose faith in the chain of command, the damage runs deeper and lasts longer. In this case, the call for accountability was loud and direct. Congressman Jason Crow didn't mince words. He demanded that Secretary Pete Hegseth resign, stating that transmitting classified operational information through an unsecured signal chain was unacceptable. His message was simple: there can be no fix, no meaningful reform, until there's a consequence for these breaches, and that consequence starts at the top. Of course, defenders will say this is political theater, but strip away the politics, and the core issue is crystal clear. The system relies on trust, from the public, from allies, and from the troops themselves. Without that trust, everything else is on shaky ground, and trust can't survive without accountability. That's the uncomfortable truth many in leadership seem unwilling to face. Admitting mistakes isn't a sign of weakness, it's a foundation of real leadership. Yet time and again, we've seen officials sidestep blame, hoping the story will fade. But these aren't the kind of failures that fade. They have lasting impact, from emboldening foreign adversaries to putting American lives at risk. What's needed now isn't just a resignation or a press conference. It's a fundamental shift in how secure communications are handled at the highest levels. It's about following the same rules the rank and file are expected to follow. It's about putting national security above convenience. And it's about making sure that when red flags go up, from the NSA, from the DoD, from anyone, they're acted on, not ignored. Because every time a warning is brushed aside, the door opens a little wider for the next breach. And while politicians debate, soldiers in the field keep doing their jobs, trusting that someone, somewhere, is protecting them from avoidable risks. That trust is worth more than any piece of equipment or budget increase. Lose it, and you've lost the very core of what keeps a military strong. So here we are, with a choice. Keep looking the other way, until the next disaster forces action, or make accountability non-negotiable right now. The American public deserves leaders who understand the weight of their responsibility. The troops deserve leadership that values their safety over political optics. And the country deserves a defense system that doesn't gamble with its own security. Because at the end of the day, you can't lead if you refuse to take responsibility. And you can't earn trust if you treat accountability like an option. The stakes are too high, the risks are too real, and the time for excuses has run out. If you agree accountability should come first, drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep digging into the stories they don't want you to hear, hit that subscribe button, because the next video is even more controversial.